And they found you amusing for a while.
But the one thing they love more than a hero
is to see a hero fail, fall, die trying.
Man, what a weird scene. And why is Green Goblin's mask so terrible? Sure, the Sam Raimi Spider-Man trilogy might as well be considered the contemporary Rosetta Stone to unlocking the superhero blockbuster world we live in today, but it has one flaw that's still viewed as a cultural punching bag to this day. And no, it's not that emo dance. It's that dang Green Goblin mask.
Oh my god.
Before we swing too far into today's episode, please be sure to like, comment, and subscribe to Nerdstalgic for more superhero content just like this. Spider-Man's path to the big screen was anything but a straight line. From his 60s animated show and 70s live-action appearances to close calls with filmmakers like James Cameron and Albert Pune, it can be difficult to remember today, but cracking the code of how to make superhero films work in live action took a considerable amount of effort. The comic book explosion of the 2000s saw every sort of visual solution being thrown at the beloved four-colored characters of yore. But the most tried and true solution was to tone down the potentially campy or garish color palettes of the characters in question and drop them into a world that was more serious and dour. Remember, even Tim Burton's almost produced Superman Lives would have taken the big blue Boy Scout and turned him into an all-black suited hero sporting a mullet. If that doesn't tell you how much the studio execs were scared of spandex and bright colors, nothing will.
Time to give the devil his due.
And against that narrative backdrop, in comes Sam Raimi. Die-hard Spider-Man fan and, at the time, the least likely human alive to direct a massive blockbuster. Don't forget, Raimi, originally known for his oddball horror comedies, was in something of a journeyman era. After suffering a few very public failures, he chose to pivot into directing a spiritual trilogy of semi-lifeless studio pictures, obviously produced in the attempt to convince the industry at large that he wasn't a one-trick pony.
I told you to stay off this set and never come back.
I love that.
He wanted to communicate that he could be a competent director who didn't need to rely on slapstick comedy, hyper-stylized visuals, or gross-out horror. Did The Gift, For the Love of the Game, and A Simple Plan accomplish this goal? Yeah, they did. Did they leave a terrible, deep cultural groove? No. However, playing it safe and making some films that were less than enticing to his small but dedicated core audience paid off in the long term. Because Raimi, after meeting with future mega-producer Avi Arad, landed the gig of a lifetime, directing the live-action version of his favorite comic book character, the friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. Raimi is largely to credit with multiple rounds of rewrites that refocus the story on Peter Parker's daily trials and tribulations. These new drafts pulled in complex social dynamics,
Computer salesman, computer engineer, computer analyst. My lord, even the computers need analysts these days.
and kept the emotional life of the characters grounded while allowing the more operatic elements of the story to sing. Raimi was also the man behind keeping the now iconic Spider-Man suit largely the same as its comic book counterpart. It sounds like a foregone conclusion that the film version of Spider-Man's costume would look like the Steve Ditko designed ensemble, but stranger things have happened. When the film was first announced, fans were up in arms about the idea that Spider-Man's web-slinging sequences were largely going to be computer-generated. That almost seems unthinkable, doesn't it? Modern Marvel films have more CGI than actual practical photography. Times were different then. And even though we ultimately got a great costume, that wasn't always the plan. Multiple design paths were explored in an attempt to figure out what the best look would be for Spidey's big screen debut. In fact, acclaimed illustrator Alex Ross designed a drastically different suit that was even made and screen tested before the suit we know and love was eventually selected. Today, everyone knows that the Raimi Spider-Man suit was a huge step forward in legitimizing the aesthetics of superhero movies. It was the first pseudo-spandex costume to pull in large audiences since Richard Donner's Superman. The Spider-Man suit that eventually graced the silver screen felt both contemporary and timeless. Is it a little weird that his eye shields look like he's frowning constantly? Yes, sure. But its raised silver webbing and Gore-Tex aesthetic gave it the credibility and believability that it and the genre overall desperately needed. Conversely, we have this abomination.
Hello, my dear.
They say your hero is only as good as their villain, but thankfully that axiom doesn't apply to costume design. Why did they choose this rigid Power Rangers-looking ribbed jazzercise outfit? Who knows? They couldn't even come up with an in-universe reason why Green Goblin dons the costume in the first place. But the worst part of it is the mask. It's unmoving and structured, and its weird retractable eye shields are endlessly vexing. And to make matters worse, we could have had this. Yes, that's right. Studio ADI, the company that was responsible for designing both the Alien and the Predator's on-screen appearances, created a more comic book accurate look for Norman Osborn's nefarious alter ego. Green Goblin's core visual traits are his maniacal laugh and ghoulish grin. The existing mask tried to play off that idea, however, since there's literally no emotion there, it just leaves the viewers cold. Whereas this test footage could have propelled Willem Dafoe's already iconic turn as the character into something utterly genre-shattering. This design looks like it might have been an offshoot of the potential designs that Alex Ross did for the film, mixed with the designs that concept artists Tevz and James Carson did. This design could have been the godsend that this character needed. Goblin and Osborn are such emotionally unhinged characters that choosing to create an unmoving mask was a big misstep for the film. And it seems apparent that everyone involved in the film knew that the performance of Osborn was going to be an integral part of the project. So much so that most of the other concept art that's been revealed since the film's release, like James Carson's full body paintings or concept artist Warren Manser's mask sketches, all have a focus on revealing the face. Frankly, the fact that they didn't go with the more outlandish green-skinned face is a perfect sign of the times. Raimi could only fight so many battles, and this Green Goblin battle was just not one he was going to win. The studio obviously wanted the villain to reflect visually the militarism of the scripted backstory, and so they opted for the mask we all know. The Goblin mask has become such a cultural punching bag that when Dafoe returned for the MCU version of his iconic villain, they literally shattered it so he wouldn't have to wear it throughout the film. When asked about it on the No Way Home press tour, Willem Dafoe told the New York Times, "I must be honest. I am aware that there was some criticism of that mask in the original one. We heard it enough that it was probably a consideration to change it up a little bit. I don't think about that because I don't think about emoting with my face." This is how far we've come. In the early 2000s, it was a feat just to convince a studio executive that anyone would want to see a movie based on a comic book. Now, we're putting Easter eggs in the film as responses to the fandom's opinions of characters' costume designs. In fact, in recent years, this debate about the Goblin's design has continued to be such a hot topic that James Atchison, the original costume designer, told Cinema Blend, "The trouble about all these costumes is that the process of making them are exhausting. And if somebody says, no, I don't want that, you've got to retread your steps because of the processes of casting and painting them." And you can see that decision fatigue in the Goblin's design. Raimi obviously couldn't win the fight, so he just moved on. That being said, if there was an area to compromise on, it was this. Spider-Man and its sequels would be a massive step forward in the superhero genre. Ultimately, we all owe Sam Rami and his team a massive thank you. And hopefully, next time Green Goblin rears his ugly head, we get him looking much more like this than like that. Well, that's all we have for this episode. What do you think? Should we do more videos about iconic character designs in superhero films? Let us know down in the comments below, and as always, please be sure to like, comment, and subscribe to Nerdstalgic for more videos just like this.